Hey there, Steeler Nation. Flip Fisher here with another Steelers dose of reality. You know, in my last video I threw out and showed you where our offensive depth chart is sitting with players under contract for 2022. And I got comments saying, "Ooh, that's worrisome." Well, it is worrisome with the offense. But now we're going to get to the defense. And, I'm going to tell you the defense is honestly scarier. It really is than the offense. And I say that because of the amount of talent that we have under contract on the defense. But before we get to that, I'm going to say some things here that are going to be swimming against the narratives that a lot in the media are pumping out. I read a lot of different articles and so forth. I don't follow the local Pittsburgh media because most of those guys are either mouthpieces for the Steelers or a jagoff like Mark Madden. So that being said, I'm not laying the issues that the defense had stopping the run on the defensive line because it's just not true. You look at the film, and where are the defensive linemen getting pushed apart when they're running 5-on-3? That's where you're seeing it. You're not seeing the linebackers, and I'm not just talking the inside linebackers. I'm also talking the outside linebackers stepping into these big, massive holes that are created when Wormley gets mauled by a double team. All right, I want to get off my soapbox a bit, but I'm gonna say our biggest strength on the defense is actually the defensive line. There's going to be two huge question marks heading into 2022 regarding our defensive line. The health of Tyson Alualu. Alualu. Oh, boy. I don't generally get tripped up by him, but I just did. I'm gonna leave that in there because that was fun. And Stephon Tuitt, who, man, I don't know what's going on with Tuitt. I don't think anybody knows what's going on with Tuitt. We all know that his brother was killed in a terrible hit and run accident last year in front of his mom. But then he also had knee issues, and I always thought that it was really his knee issues that were the problem. Because he landed on IR all season long. But then there's reports coming out that it was actually, he was still dealing with the loss of his brother. What I didn't understand if it was a mental thing, why he didn't go on the non-football injury list like we saw Calvin Ridley of the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know why that didn't happen. I don't know when we're going to find out any information onto it if he is playing in 2022 or exactly what the issues were for 2021. If the knee injury was that bad or he had some kind of setback or exactly what happened. I would hope in the next 4-5 weeks before free agency starts, I would hope that we would find out his status. All right, so let's get into the depth chart though. So we have Tuitt and Wormley, and I'm a huge fan of Wormley. He got 8 sacks last year. I'm impressed with that. There's a guy that we traded, from Baltimore for chump change. And I was impressed with him. People will knock him for his run defense, but I'm not. I don't think he was the issue. We might get into some film study down the road on that. And of course, the other defensive end is Cam Hayward, all stud, rebounded from a ho hum 2020 year to a very solid 2021 campaign. Like I said, will Alualu be the starting nose tackle? Wow. I don't know. There's some reports coming out that he is coming back. He's 35. But how bad was the ankle break that he suffered? We'll probably find that out fairly quick. And, he's been a very big asset for us. He's a player that, wow, we never thought he would do that well at nose tackle, and he really has shined. And the backups under contract, we still have Carlos Davis, who was really our only true nose tackle. Henry Mondeau, who's an end of the roster guy. Isaiah Loudermilk, who we moved up in the draft for. Did he show anything? Did he show anything to actually say, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that guy start? I don't think we saw anything like that out of him. But, being a fourth rounder, we're not looking for somebody to start. At least not in the first 2 years out of him. We saw what happens when we jam in a fourth round starter, didn't we, on offense? A guy I expect them to bring back, no matter what, would be Montavious Adams, and bring him back at nose tackle. That would probably make Mondo expendable. I thought he did. He wasn't flashy. He didn't do anything great. But, like I've pointed out in our previous videos, we don't have a lot of cap space. We got to make some of these tougher decisions. Like keeping Alualu. Cutting Alualu doesn't save hardly any cap space. Like 1.6 million. Or 1.8 million, something like that. That's chump change. Moving on from Tuitt only saves like $4.5 million. Well, out of a guy who's 28, 29 years old, that's dumb for a guy that's put up 11 sacks in the past. And, with him, it just depends on his health. But bringing Montavious Adams back, he'll come really cheap. He'll add depth at the nose tackle position. And I really don't think we need any kind of defensive tackle help whatsoever. We have bigger fish to fry, people. We really do. To say we need a defensive nose tackle or a defensive end, well, why? We got Wormley coming off of 8 sacks. We got Adams, who didn't embarrass himself. We got Carlos Davis, who has had starts at nose tackle and didn't embarrass himself. It's time that we focus elsewhere. Focus on what the real problems on this defense are. And one spot that is absolutely not a problem is the outside linebackers. TJ Watt finally got his Defensive Player of the Year that people have been crying about for 2 years. Well deserved. Tied the NFL record with 22 and a half sacks. On the other side, we have, Mr. All-World. No, I'm kidding. We got Alex Smith, who, I kind of bashed on Alex Smith before the season started. I was saying, prove it. Prove that Alex Smith is going to round the corner from his 2-sack performance in 2020. And he did. But he digressed on his run stopping the second half of the season while he really focused more on sacks. I don't know if that's something that is going to continue down the road. Is he only going to be going for sacks like TJ, or is he going to do a heck of a job at setting the edge like he did the first half and also in 2020? That's going to be really interesting to see. Their backup, and this is a guy that I'm very, very high on. And if you've read any of my comments, you know I'm very high on Derek Tuzga. I don't even know if I'm saying the name right, but I think I am. In very limited time last year, he rolled out 2 sacks. We went through the whole debacle with Melvin Ingram. Oh, we dealt with that, and that sucked. To lose a player like that because he's disgruntled. But it allowed us to see Derek Tuzga step up. And I was impressed with him. He did okay in run stopping and pulled the 2 sacks. And this is a former 7th round nobody from Denver. And we just plucked him off the trash heap. And I say roll with him. I don't want to spend a bunch of free agent money on a position we just got 2 sacks out of on a guy who's dirt cheap. You gotta make those tough choices. We only have 3 under contract, 3 outside linebackers under contract, so we're gonna need at least 1, maybe 2 more. You never know how many the Steelers are really going to, carry under contract from year to year. But I don't think we definitely don't need some 3rd or 4th round guy at outside linebacker. Roll with some developmental guy in the 6th, 7th round. Or just, go with another undrafted scrap heap guy. Inside linebacker is the position that I am absolutely going to bash on. And this is a position I've bashed on for years. Joe Schobert, absolutely the wrong answer to the inside linebacker issues. He is a MAC linebacker, not a buck linebacker. And if y'all aren't familiar with which is which, how I will always tell you, the MAC is Shazier, the buck was Timmons. Or if you want to look at it more recently, the MAC is Bush, Vince Williams was the buck. Well, the problem with our team is we don't have a true buck linebacker. The buck linebacker is a bigger guy. He's going to be taking on the fullbacks. He's going to be shedding the guard blocks, the center blocks. He's the guy that does a lot of the dirty work that you don't really notice. But Joe Schobert failed at being the buck, which, he was going to fail at being the MAC anyway. Because he's just, I showed in video before the season started, I showed his talent or lack of talent against a run and against a pass. I fully expect the Steelers to move on. There's no reason Joe Schobert is worth $9 million. Devin Bush really regressed. And, a lot of people are going to blame the ACL. You can blame the ACL all you want. It doesn't matter. He's under contract this year. They're going to turn down his 5th-year option. That's a no-brainer right now because he just looked that bad. Right now, he's shaping up to be a monster bust, for us moving up in the first round. What will this year hold for him? I think what does hurt Bush a bit is not having a competent MAC linebacker beside him. And the other 2 MAC linebackers that we have are Buddy Johnson and Ulysses Gilbert. Well, Ulysses Gilbert has never amounted to anything, and Buddy Johnson really didn't show anything last year. He spent half the year inactive because he couldn't even play special teams. So I'm not going to put the cart before the horse on him saying, hey, I think he's going to be something, because we haven't seen him do anything yet. And as scary as the inside linebacker situation is, the cornerbacks are by far. The cornerback situation is by far the worst out of any position on the team. Any position. And yes, that does include punter. We have in the number one cornerback slot, Justin, I am a huge bust, Lane. This is a guy that a lot of people really loved coming out of college as a former third-round pick, I believe out of Michigan State. And it's really funny with this guy. I watched tape on him after we drafted him. It was a highlight reel on YouTube. And no kidding here, I couldn't really tell whether it was a highlight reel or a low light reel. His tape on this film really was not very good. And he's been, terrible. When you start losing time and then you can't even be active because you're behind an undrafted guy like James Pierre, who, oh man, people loved him and his 39 snaps in 2020. Loved this 39 snaps. So much potential. And then we rolled him out there and he was bad. Woo! He looked like an undrafted guy who had 39 snaps under his belt. And then, of course, we had Cam Sutton, who, we've tried in 4 years, we've moved Cam Sutton to the outside, to the slot cornerback. He's just never looked, for me, I don't think he's ever looked good playing the outside. Never. Maybe some snaps here and there, but not as a full game. Much better slot guy. This is a guy who I was kind of calling on, maybe them giving him the boot, but he's going to cost us $5 million this year. I've kind of changed my tune and said, let's just eat it. He's got void years upcoming on his contract too. Nothing major. But keep him in the slot. Let's see what we can do on building some corners around him. For anybody who's read anything that I've wrote, know that I'm a big J.C. Jackson fan from New England, and all signs are pointing that Bill Belichick's actually going to let him walk, or at least test free agency. That's a guy that's probably going to cost $18 to $20 million per year, but I think it's a necessity coming with a lockdown, shutdown cornerback. The other cornerback is Witherspoon. And what we saw out of him last year in limited play was we saw a guy with potential. We saw a guy that had the ability to run with a lot of the second cornerbacks. He did not go out there and embarrass himself. Now, he is a free agent. I'm not sure what we're going to be able to get him for, what his market is. This is a guy that, he did have a bunch of playing time in San Fran, but lost his gig there because of inconsistency issues. And that's what thing we didn't see a lot of. We didn't see a lot of inconsistency out of him. Well, so really, what is his market? Will he settle for maybe a 1-year prove-it deal at $4 or $5 million? Will he try to go that way? Will we try, give him a 2 or 3 year $4 million deal? A $4 million per year. I don't know. I really don't know what his market's going to be. It's going to be interesting to see. But definitely a guy I want back. But, going in with Lane and Pierre and Sutton, that's just terrible. That cannot happen. We would get the number one overall pick, no matter who. I think even if we started Aaron Rodgers, we could probably end up number one. It's just okay. That's a little ridiculous, but you get the gist of it. It just can't happen. Now let's get into the safeties. We got Minka, and I'm not high on Minka like everybody is. Ooh, how can you not be high on Minka? He was an All-Pro 2 years in a row. Well, he was an All-Pro because quarterbacks were afraid to throw at him. They wouldn't. Quarterbacks just would not throw at Minka in his first 2 years here with the Steelers. But last year they were like, well, who cares? Let's throw at him. And they had fairly good success. How you drop off from an all-pro level to don't even get a Pro Bowl to what do we do now? That's where I worry. And, it was mainly the first half of the season was really bad. And the second half was good. But the second half wasn't great by any means. And he still had issues in the second half. And a lot of people are saying, let's sign him to a long-term contract. Well, there's no way he deserves a deal like Adams for Seattle. He's not a box safety. Jamal Adams. He's not a box safety like Jamal Adams. So why would we pay him $18 million per year? That's crazy. He's not worth Jamal Adams' money because he doesn't do Jamal Adams' work. But what do you pay him? 15, 16 million? What's his worth after having half of a down year? I'm a little concerned that we are going to pony up a bunch of cash, and maybe we'll ask him to do too much again this coming year, like we did this past year. And maybe that's where his struggles were. Were we asking him to do too much? To play roles where Miami asked him to play? But then that begs the question, is his role limited? Is his upside limited because he can only do a little bit? Can he cover? Can he even be in the slot? Can he cover tight ends? Or is he just like a rover back? That's probably going to be a hot topic. And if we don't get any contract done with him before camp, would I expect to see what TJ Watt did last year? Yeah, I would. We will get to see how the new GM handles something like that. The only other safety on our roster is Trey Norwood, who, as a rookie last year, he was abysmal. Some people might stick up for him saying, well, he was asked to do too much. Well, Minka was asked to do too much, and he was not abysmal. He wasn't good, but he was not abysmal. Trey Norwood was bad. There's no sugarcoating that. People who are going to sugarcoat that have to stop. And yes, take a dose of, a Steelers dose of reality right there. Let's get into our special teams real quick. Boswell, old world. The only reason why he never gets to go to the Pro Bowl and, an all-pro is because of Justin Tucker. Punter Presley Harvin. Would I be shocked if he was unemployed come September? No. He was terribly inconsistent. I think it was a big mistake giving up on I think it was a big mistake giving up on Jordan Berry like we did. Jordan Berry had some inconsistencies, but if you actually look back at all his punts in the second half of 2020, you will see an extremely good punter in the second half of games. Yeah, he kind of shanked a few in the first half, but my gosh, I wonder how many punters don't do that. And my buddy's a Vikings fan, and he enjoyed watching Berry all year long, especially while we were sitting at the game. He enjoyed pointing him out and how well he punted. Our long snapper, Christian Kuntz. What can you say? He's a long snapper. He wasn't airmailing any snaps last year. Anytime you don't hear boo about a player, that's generally a good thing, especially long snappers. So there it is. There it is, Steeler Nation. There is a fairly sad-looking defense. And before you listen to a bunch of the hoo-ha, poo-ha, whatever about the defensive line, just think about how many times you saw Joe Schobert and Devin Bush. And I didn't talk about Terrell Edmonds because I don't expect him back. But how many times did you see one of those guys fill one of those holes in the line by them doing a double team on a player? How many times did you see those guys step up into that hole and smash a running back that was coming through it? You didn't very often, did you? We have a lot of work to do, both on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball. And there's no way we can, we talk about that we're in the same position, salary cap, as a lot of other teams. That's not saying that a lot of other teams are in good spots. A lot of other teams are sitting in a fairly decent spot because they have a lot of talent under contract. We don't. We don't have a lot of talent under contract on either side of the ball. And I've talked about how we are going to open up some cap space and what would be my way to open up cap space. And there's videos out there of mine where I talk about that. And then I lay out the options, the nuclear options that I don't want to do because they're bad. There's no good nuclear option. That's why it's called a nuclear option, because no one wins in that situation. So I just say, let's maybe grab a stud in free agency. And this is something I'm going to be making, hopefully, in the next couple of videos, is talking about some of the free agents that I want. Definitely free agent left tackles. Definitely free agent left tackles. That's a weak spot, but I would love a cornerback instead. J.C. Jackson. So not many other cornerbacks really trip my trigger because they're either not talented enough or they're going to actually not be talented enough and be asking for $18 million. All right there, Steeler fans. What do you think? What do you think? Do you agree with me that our defensive line wasn't the issue? Do you think that maybe we had too many MAC linebackers starting? That maybe Highsmith kind of took a little break that second half and focused on sacking instead of stopping the run. I didn't talk very much about Edmonds not coming back because he digressed. I don't think there's any reason for him to come back. All right. There you go, Steeler Nation. There is your defensive depth chart heading into 2022 before we start really getting into our free agents or other teams' free agents. Okay, well, this has been a Steelers Dose Reality with Flip Fisher. Hopefully y'all learned something. So be sure to subscribe and ring that bell to get notified when I put up more content. All right, all. Laters.